Organizational learning is one of the most common concepts and practice in the art and science of management. Organizational learning is the most competitive and collaborative advantage an organization can sustain. This is Ala Garad, the co-author of LDO, the Learning-Driven Organization Model. In 2001, I was studying for my master's in quality management, and all the time I was reading Deming, Crosby, Joran. I noticed that the key essence of quality management is about learning. So I came across a book called Fifth Discipline for Peter Senge, and that book was one of those books who really changed my thinking, changed my ideas and my thoughts and my perceptions about learning in the organizational context. That book led me to other books such as Chris Argyris on organizational learning, then and the art of motorcycle maintenance, and that was a very inspiring phase where I started to look differently in everything I do, in everything I read, and reflect on how organizations learn. I started with looking into organizational learning and tried to understand this difficulty or this complexity about what organizational learning and what is learning organization, which is still a bit confusing in the literature of management. However, I thought that organizational learning is the process of learning, while learning organization is the final product or the end result of the learning process. From 2001 till 2006, I was driven by the curiosity of the researcher and my huge appetite for learning and understanding more about this interesting concept. In 2006, I decided to do a doctoral research in organizational learning. 5 years of a lot of research, a lot of reflection, and understanding what does it take an organization to learn and to improve their performance based on learning. During this period, I was also assessor for quality awards, and I used to assess companies with another colleagues and team of assessors. Over those years, I assessed over 450 organizations. These 450 organizations were a golden resource for me, a golden treasure to learn more how organizations improve their performance based on learning. When I started doing the doctoral research, I was driven by literature, but at the same time, being practitioner, I was reflecting on all mechanisms, all sorts of practices that organizations do in order to solve problems, in order to learn from customers, in order to learn from employees. I've conducted over 83 interviews, individual interviews and focus group, a huge amount of documents review, and understanding the reports and feedback from assessors to organizations. So I've conducted empirical work in an international group to understand how they succeed in applying learning and how they fail. So based on this empirical work, informed by the literature, I started developing the thoughts about LDO, the organizational learning model. Coming to the LDO model, learning-driven organization, if we think of the organization as a pyramid, that pyramid has building blocks and also has levels. If you look into the base level, there are bases, there are ethos should be there. What does it take an organization to convince their employees to subscribe in their values, in their ethos, and to understand why they are doing what they are doing? That is the culture that should be embedded in the organization, which is the most difficult part. It's exactly like when you set up the basis for the pyramid. Organizational culture is very important, and it's always the evident, it is there and it is not there, because everybody talks about the culture. However, because it's an intangible element in the organization, it is very difficult to assess or to measure. So the model was very keen and very focused on starting with the culture. Overall, the model comprises of 3 levels. The culture part comprises of 8 requirements. Those 8 requirements, based on research, based on empirical work, based on literature, based on reflection, if we are able to embed and fuse these 8 requirements or 8 criteria in the organization, we would be done with the first level of building the pyramid. We have talked about the culture and talked about the basis of the pyramid, which is like the why part. So people need to understand why. Now we move to the second level of the pyramid, which is the main component. We call it organizational learning mechanisms, which is the how part. So how organizations can move from after building the culture, into building or putting the building blocks towards the pyramid, which is the practices, the things, the approaches, the processes, the activities, everything. We can call it all of these terms. What are the practices that the organization can adopt in order to have this tangible part of learning? So this is the how part, the organizational learning mechanisms, which comprises of 20 requirements. So 20 criteria, if implemented or partially implemented, that can help organization to cover the second level of building the pyramid of learning. The third level and the top level of the pyramid, which is the organizational learning outcomes or results. We always study in management what you cannot measure, you cannot improve. So how can we measure the outcome? One of the very challenging parts of learning, which is measuring the ROI or the return on investment on learning. And I don't mean training or any typical traditional concept about improvement. We're talking about everything, every activity that the organization puts effort in and investment in order to improve. So how we measure the outcome is the third part or the top level, which is the organizational learning outcomes. And this part comprises of 7 requirements. So we give an idea about the model, but is that really applicable? Is there any organizations who applied this model or similar models and improved their performance? The answer is definitely yes. There are organizations like Xerox, like IBM, Apple, the American Army. Many organizations have adopted the organizational learning concepts, even without a model, just the concepts, and they have done major improvement. I personally participated with a team in applying some of these concepts of the model, and in 4.5 months after using the techniques of organizational learning, we managed to save that company over $100 million. That is published case and documented savings of $100 million in less than 5 months. The model can help in several aspects. Some of the benefits of applying the model: increase the productivity of employees, improve the customer satisfaction. Actually, it takes the customer satisfaction from the level of satisfaction to the delight level, rather just satisfaction. It helps with the retention of employees. It strengthens the relation with partners, with all stakeholders. And of course, it improves the reputation of the company, needless to mention about achieving the financial targets. So every one of these aspects is supported by empirical data and evidence from industry that the model helps organizations to improve these results. So what is the next step? We have developed a website for the model, and there is a survey for free. Any organization can go and use the survey in order to understand what are the strengths and what are the areas for improvement. And this is the very beginning. It takes only 5 to 7 minutes to fill in the survey, and easily can get a dashboard that contains the areas for improvement and the strengths of the organization. Based on this, the course of action would be agreed later. Thank you for listening and for your interest in learning, and we are happy to help and provide more resources. You have seen my contact information here. Please feel free to contact me anytime, and thank you very much.